Hey guys, I'm Mel and today I'm going to talk about my favorite classics. So, a few disclaimers first. For me, a classic has to have three things. One, it has to be brilliantly written, of course. Two, it gives a context for how the society was formed at the time that the book was written. And three, it's a timeless book that you can read it at any time, and it also has deeper subject. You can analyze and figure out and gives you different things more than the plot. The first two are from the same author, but I can't pick one of these two. But they are Emma and Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So Jane Austen is one of my favorite authors of all time. I think she was a brilliant writer. The reason I picked both of these books is that Emma is my favorite Jane Austen book. I just think the characters are absolutely brilliant. Emma and Mr. Knightley is one of the cutest couples ever. It's a book that talks about a young girl, but it also gives a sense of what the society expected of her, what she expected of herself, and how she, despite of everything, has a heart of gold. And something like that happens with Pride and Prejudice. I chose Pride and Prejudice because I think it's the most iconic novel by Jane Austen, and I absolutely love it. It's kind of the same as Emma, but it's also kind of different because it's what society didn't expect of Liz. People expected her to be much less than she wanted to be. She always had this heart of gold, like Emma, to do the things that are right and to do the things that are right for her family and for her friends. You know, it talks about flaws, with where it can take you and how you can redeem yourself. The third book is probably my favorite classic, and it's Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is a story about everything, about love, about despair, about hate, about death, about family. And you know what makes a family a family? It's about the love that you don't know until what point it's good or bad. And for me, it's a masterpiece of English literature. The two next books are from the same author again. They both are in my list for similar things. I've always loved books that explain a lot of things about the government, especially if it's criticizing the government. And these books also changed the way I thought. They both changed my life at different times of my life, and I think they give you so much think. And they are 1984 and Animal Farm by George Orwell. These are two books that are really different from each other, but they both have kind of the same feeling when you're reading them. 1984 is a little bit more metaphoric, and when you're reading it, it's obvious that it's a metaphor. It's more, you know, present, the things that George Orwell tried to say. In 1984, it's more of a novel, it's more of a story, and it's longer. I think from 1984 you can take a lot of things. I mean, from both of the books you can take a lot of things, but 1984 being a longer book, it has so many different aspects. I think this kind of books makes you more critical of the world around you. The next one is a book that I read very recently, but as I was reading it, I knew that it was one of my favorite books. It's The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. This was such a unique book. The writing style was just amazing, and it keeps you hooked to the book for the entire time that you're reading it. And even if the writing style doesn't keep you hooked, the plot makes you want to know everything about everything that happened in that town with that family. You want to know, you know, the how and when and where. It doesn't only touches the subject of suicide, but it also talks about how the society can influence decisions, how they immerse themselves in things that are not their problem. This book is definitely graphic and kind of depressing, and I think it's not for everybody. But if it sounds like something you want to read, please do. The next book is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I think it was so revolutionary. You have to think that all of these girls that are the protagonists and not the protagonists of these books are girls. Elizabeth Bennet was 16 and Jane Eyre was 18. Jane Eyre is a story about the governess that works for a family that has a lot of secrets. For me, it was one of the most beautifully written books that I've ever read. It has one of my favorite heroines. Jane Eyre is such a strong but flawed, weird girl. She makes a lot of mistakes and she's really insecure, and you know, sometimes she doesn't know what to do. But she's so strong and she's so smart, and I loved how she stood up for herself when she had to. And I think it's such a feminist book because for that time she was quite revolutionary, but I absolutely hated Mr. Rochester. So the next book is Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. This book is really long. I love Russian literature, but sometimes it can get quite slow. If you ever read this book, I would recommend to keep reading it, even though it gets really slow at some point, because at the end, when you think about your reading experience, you're not going to regret it. It gives you so many things to think about. It's suspenseful, it's a penetrating story. It can have such a psychological analysis, and it's one thing that I've read, I think in Goodreads, that the more you analyze and you think about what's happening, and the more you intellectualize what's happening in the book, the more imprisoned you become. It talks about great suffering, but it's also kind of funny, kind of a dark humor. So it makes you think about, human nature and murder and, morality. The next book is A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. This is quite a popular book. If you haven't read the book, you probably have seen the movie, but it's also a very disturbing book. It's a vision of the future from the author. It touches a lot of morality aspects, like what things are right and what things are wrong, and all the gray areas in between. When you think that the character can, redeem himself, the novel and the author, at what cost. So it's a very thrilling novel, very controversial, very violent, but it's absolutely beautiful. It's written so precisely and so good. You keep feeling sorry for the character even though he's an asshole. And the last book is one that I read super recently, and it's Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. If you need more about the plot, it's in my last wrap-up. I read it last month. The thing with this book is that it's the same thing that I said in my wrap-up. It's so messed up, and I wanted to stop reading so many times. It's so fucked up, but at the same time it's so important that we read it. It's so much deeper than you would think that it is the first time you read it. It's so brilliantly written that it gives ambiguity to explore your own psyche. As I said, this book is super creepy. It's not at all romantic, but at the end it's a masterpiece. It's written so well that it makes you sick. And it's about obsession, it's about lust, it's about, craziness, and you have to read it. So those were all my favorite books. I didn't include any Latin American books because I already made a video about that, and I'm going to link it on the description, as well as more information about the book. So if you're interested, you can, explore more about the books. And what are your favorite classics? For me, it's super interesting to know, because I think it tells so much about the person to know what are the favorite classics. And that's everything for today. Hope you have a great day. Hope you liked it. If you did, subscribe, and see you when I see you. Bye!